My name is Adam Carter, and I'm 28 years old. I've spent the last 6 years of my life working as a nurse at St. Michael's Hospital in Detroit, scraping by on a salary that barely covers my rent. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings, but unlike David and Emily, who both have thriving careers and perfect lives, I've always been the disappointment, the one who can't quite seem to measure up. I've learned to stay out of their way, to avoid their judgment, but it doesn't make it easier. Lately, though, it hasn't been just my family that's been making me feel like I don't belong. Something dark is happening at the hospital, and it feels like I'm at the center of it all. The last few days, I've started to see things I shouldn't, hear whispers I shouldn't, and realize that the one person I've been helping, the homeless man I've fed for the past 3 months, knows more about me than I ever thought. He warned me tonight to avoid the usual route home. I should have listened. They're coming for me. And I'm not sure I'll survive the next 24 hours. The cold wind hit me as I stepped out of the hospital, a reminder that Detroit's winters didn't mess around. The streets were slick with ice, the kind of icy that made even the shortest steps feel dangerous. My feet ached, my back ached, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a day off. I tugged my jacket tighter and shoved my hands into my pockets, the familiar sound of my boots on the wet pavement the only noise in the otherwise silent night. I'd just finished a brutal 12-hour shift. Something was off today. The usual monotony of taking care of patients had been broken by a strange feeling creeping in. It wasn't just the exhaustion. It wasn't just the isolation. It was something else, something gnawing at the edges of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that someone was following me in those dark hallways and sterile rooms. The whispers, the looks, the small, subtle signs. But maybe I was just paranoid. The stress of my life had a way of messing with my head. I turned onto the usual street, the one I walked every night after work, the one that led me to my tiny apartment on the edge of town. The streetlights flickered above me as the wind bit at my exposed skin. That was when I heard him. Adam. I stopped dead in my tracks, my breath catching in my throat. I hadn't seen him. Not until his voice broke through the silence. Roy. The old man, the homeless veteran who sat on the corner near the hospital every day, wrapped in his threadbare coat and covered in a tattered blanket. He had a kind face, roughened by years of living on the streets, but his eyes always held a quiet intelligence. Over the past few months, I'd gotten to know him, bringing him food after my shifts, talking to him about his days in the army. He never asked for anything, just company, just a few moments of kindness in his lonely existence. I turned around, my eyes scanning the shadows. Roy was standing just a few feet behind me, his weathered hands gripping a metal shopping cart that rattled with every slight movement. Roy? I asked, unsure whether I was dreaming or just too tired to think clearly. You're walking the wrong way, he said, his voice low and urgent. Don't take the usual route home tonight. I stared at him, confused. He was always quiet, always polite. This was different. There was fear in his eyes. What do you mean? It's just the usual way. I always go this way, I said, frowning. I'm tired, Roy. No, not tonight, Adam. Not this time. His grip on the cart tightened. Trust me. Go through the center. Take the long way home. I shook my head, dismissing the warning. I had to be hearing things. It was just the stress of the job getting to me. It's just a shortcut, Roy, I muttered, rubbing my face. Nothing's going to happen. Roy stepped forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. You don't understand. They're watching. They've been watching you for weeks. If you go down that road, it'll be the last time you do. My blood ran cold. I didn't know why, but I suddenly felt like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't see. Something dangerous. Roy, what are you talking about? I asked, stepping closer, trying to understand. He didn't answer me. Instead, he gave me a look that was half pity, half warning, and then turned, shuffling back toward the shadows. I stood there, frozen for a moment, the silence surrounding me like a heavy blanket. The world seemed to hold its breath. I should have listened. I should have taken the long way home. But instead, I shook my head, dismissing Roy's words as nonsense. I had enough of people warning me about things I couldn't control. My life wasn't about superstition or fate, it was about survival. I kept walking. The cold air cut deeper as I continued down the familiar street. My thoughts churned. Maybe Roy had lost his mind. After all, he was just a homeless old man. He had no reason to be scared. But that look in his eyes. It felt like more than a warning. It felt like a premonition. The streetlights ahead flickered again. My pace quickened. I just needed to get home. That's when I heard it. A screeching sound, followed by a massive engine revving too loud. Before I could react, a truck barreled toward me, swerving violently. My heart leapt into my throat as I froze in place. The truck was coming fast, too fast. My feet wouldn't move. A flash of headlights, a burst of horn, and then the truck swerved past me, missing me by mere inches, its tires screeching on the wet pavement as it tore down the street, disappearing into the night. I stood there, panting, my body frozen in place, too shocked to move. My head spun. I'd almost died. And I couldn't stop thinking about Roy's warning. I should have listened. I should have taken the long way home. The night felt different after I almost died. My heart still raced as I made my way home, my feet dragging on the cold pavement. The near miss with the truck replayed in my head over and over again. I shouldn't have ignored Roy. I kept my head low, blending into the shadows of the streets. The city was quieter than usual, the cold making everyone stay inside. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from David, "We need to talk tomorrow." Important. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. My brother, who never had time for me unless it suited him, suddenly wanted to talk. The irony of it wasn't lost on me. The tension between us had been building ever since I moved out of the house a year ago. David always thought I was the weak link, the one who would never amount to anything. He had the life everyone envied, and I had my nursing job, a tiny apartment, and a part-time life that barely fit together. But now, as I read his message, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, something more dangerous than family drama. I pulled my jacket tighter and turned the corner onto my usual street, only to stop dead in my tracks. There, at the end of the alley, was Roy's shopping cart. His figure was hunched over, partially hidden in the shadows. But tonight, he wasn't the same. There was something about his posture, the way his eyes were locked on me even from across the street. "Adam," he called out. His voice was strained, weaker than usual, and yet urgent. "Don't go that way. Please." I froze, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. "Roy," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What's going on?" "You don't want to know," he replied, his voice growing more frantic. He pushed himself up from the cart, stepping closer to me. "Listen to me, boy. There's something bad about to happen. It's not just the drugs, they're watching you." I shook my head. "What are you talking about? You're not making sense." Roy's hand shot out, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. "They know. They know about you. About your job. About everything." He paused, his face contorting with fear. "They won't stop until they get what they want. You're in deeper than you realize." "Who?" My voice trembled, but I refused to show weakness. "Who's after me?" Roy's eyes flickered toward the street, as if he was afraid someone might be listening. "There's a storm coming, Adam. And you can't outrun it." I tried to pull my arm free, but his grip was like iron. "Who's after me, Roy?" I repeated. Before he could answer, the distant sound of tires screeching echoed through the alley. I turned toward the noise, but when I looked back, Roy was already retreating into the darkness. "Roy!" I shouted, but he was gone. Just like that, vanished into the night. My pulse was racing. Every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong. I couldn't explain it, but it felt like the world was closing in on me. I stood there, in the middle of the empty street, trying to make sense of it all. I had to get home, had to make sense of what had happened tonight, but everything felt off. Like I wasn't supposed to be walking down this street at all. I forced myself to start walking, but the air felt heavier with every step. They know about me. The words kept repeating in my mind. It wasn't just paranoia. I was being watched. And I had no idea by whom. I reached the front door of my apartment, the familiar lock and key greeting me like an old friend. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, but before I could even close it behind me, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. It was from Sarah, the nurse from the hospital. We need to talk. Now. I know what's going on. My heart skipped a beat. The last time Sarah and I had talked, things had been complicated. She had been one of the few people I trusted at work, someone I could talk to when things felt too heavy. But her sudden message now felt like another piece of the puzzle falling into place, one I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. I didn't have time to think about it. The noise from the street outside grew louder, footsteps echoing, too many for comfort. I glanced out the window, expecting to see someone, but the street was empty. My breath caught. The shadows in the corner of my vision seemed to shift, watching me. I picked up the phone and typed a quick reply to Sarah. I'm listening. Where? Before I could hit send, a knock sounded at the door. Slow, deliberate. I froze, staring at the door, my heart pounding in my chest. There was no way anyone should be at my place at this hour. Not unless they had been waiting for me. The knock came again, louder this time. I wasn't ready. Not for this. But then again, whoever is. I swallowed hard, taking a deep breath as I approached the door. Who the hell was on the other side? I was frozen in place. The knock at the door was slow, deliberate, as if whoever was on the other side knew exactly how to stretch the tension, to make my nerves snap like an over-tightened wire. I stepped back, my hand gripping the doorknob like a lifeline, trying to steady my breathing. Who the hell is this? There was a small part of me, the rational part, that told me to just open the door. But everything else, my gut, my instincts, screamed for me to run. I wasn't ready for whatever was behind that door, and I had no idea what to do next. I leaned back against the door, heart hammering. The knock came again, louder this time. More insistent. My mind raced. Was it the police? Someone from the hospital? Or, worse, was it someone who knew about Roy? About everything? A low voice came from the other side, cutting through the silence like a knife. Adam, open up. I know you're in there. It was Sarah. My breath caught in my throat. Sarah. Of course. She knows. I quickly unlocked the door, pulling it open just enough to peek out, trying to catch a glimpse of her without fully letting her in. Her face looked pale, frantic, her usual calm demeanor shattered. She was breathing heavily, as though she'd been running. Sarah, what the hell's going on? I whispered harshly, glancing over my shoulder to make sure no one else was waiting in the dark hallway. We need to talk. Now. She pushed the door open wider, stepping inside before I could protest. It's not safe, Adam. They've been watching you. All of you. What the hell are you talking about? Who's watching me? My voice was tight, my pulse still racing from the knock at the door. This was too much. Roy's warning felt so much more real now, but I couldn't make sense of it. Sarah paced back and forth, clearly on edge. It's the syndicate, Adam. They're connected to the hospital. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. They've been using you. You've been playing into their hands without even knowing. I shook my head, unable to keep up. What do you mean, using me? She stopped pacing and looked me dead in the eyes. You're the one they've been waiting for. They've been using your access to the hospital to get what they need. The drugs, the supplies, everything. And now you're in too deep. My stomach twisted. It felt like the ground was slipping from under my feet. I had been working there, just doing my job, helping people. How was I possibly involved in something like that? How do you know this? I asked, though a part of me already knew the answer. The same way I had learned so much in the last few days, through whispers, through half-truths. But I had to hear it from her. I had to know if she was telling the truth. I've been seeing things, Sarah said, her voice shaking. I've seen the numbers, the accounts. I didn't want to believe it. But I'm not the only one who's noticed. There are people watching you, watching us. You're not safe here. My mind raced. I felt dizzy, my thoughts colliding with each other. What had Roy meant when he said they're watching you? Was it the same people? Who else is involved in this? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. My voice barely sounded like mine anymore. Sarah stepped closer, lowering her voice. Adam, I think someone in your family is involved too. I froze. My family. David. What do you mean, my family? I whispered, barely able to say the words. The weight of what she was suggesting threatened to crush me. You're saying my brother's involved in this? Sarah looked away, biting her lip. I don't have all the details. But I've seen things at the hospital, names, files, transactions. It all leads back to your family. I was shaking now. My mind flashed back to the message David had sent me earlier. We need to talk tomorrow. Important. No way. It couldn't be. David? He was always so distant, so consumed with his career. He'd never been involved in anything like this. But now, hearing Sarah's words, hearing Roy's warning, it all clicked together in a way I couldn't ignore. You're lying, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I didn't believe them. I wanted to believe them, but something deep inside told me this wasn't a lie. Sarah stepped back, tears welling up in her eyes. Adam, I swear, I'm not. I never wanted to get you involved in any of this. I tried to stop it, but I couldn't. I couldn't protect you. I stood there for a moment, trying to process everything. Protect me? Was she even telling the truth? Then it hit me. They're coming for me, aren't they? Sarah didn't answer, but I didn't need her to. The answer was in the air, thick and suffocating. Something was closing in, and I could feel it in my bones. My stomach churned with a fear I couldn't shake. If they were coming for me, they wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. I stepped toward the window and peeked through the blinds. The street outside was quiet, too quiet. No one was around. It felt like everything was just waiting for the moment to explode. You need to leave, Sarah, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. They're going to find you here. You need to go. Now. I can't leave you, Adam, she said, taking a step toward me. I won't leave you. I shook my head, panic rising. You don't understand. They know. If you stay, they'll come for you too. I didn't give her a chance to respond. My hand grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. But as I opened it, I froze. There, standing in the hallway, was a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, dressed in a black suit. His face was expressionless, but his eyes were cold. He wasn't here to talk. I could feel the blood drain from my face as he spoke in a low, controlled voice. We need to talk, Adam, he said. It's time you learned the truth. The door slammed shut behind me, locking me into a game I didn't know how to play. The man standing in my doorway was not a friend, not an ally. He was cold, detached, his eyes like two pits of ice. My stomach tightened as I took in his appearance. He was tall, dressed in a dark, tailored suit, and his expression was impassive. I didn't recognize him, but his presence felt like a storm cloud hanging over me, waiting to burst. You're Adam, right? He asked, his voice low but steady. I nodded, though my throat felt dry, constricted. Who are you? I'm here because you've been chosen, he said, his gaze never wavering. Chosen to help resolve this situation. There's no turning back now. I wasn't sure if he was talking about the hospital or something else. The pieces were still too scattered in my mind. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, but I couldn't take my eyes off him. Who sent you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. You'll meet them soon enough, he replied, his lips twitching into a slight, humorless smile. But for now, we have work to do. I didn't like the sound of that. Not one bit. The air in my apartment felt heavy, like the walls themselves were closing in. I was trying to piece together what was happening, but I was coming up short. Roy's warning still rang in my ears. They know about you, he'd said. They're watching you. I stepped back, opening the door wider. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not getting involved in whatever this is. So you can leave now. The man didn't move. Instead, he took a step forward, his eyes cold and calculating. He leaned in just enough so I could feel his breath on my skin, and he whispered, "You don't have a choice." A chill ran through me, making my body stiffen. Something in his tone, it wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I had to get out of here. I had to make a plan, but everything inside me screamed that there was no safe escape. I looked to the side, my brain working fast, but everything felt like it was closing in too fast. I'm not going anywhere with you, I snapped, trying to regain some control. I'm not asking, he said, his tone unwavering. Before I could react, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to me. I hesitated before taking it, my fingers trembling slightly. There was something about the way he handed it to me, so calmly, like it was all already decided. Read it, he said, stepping back slightly, as if giving me space to process. I unfolded the paper, the words on it making my eyes widen. It was a list of names, dates, and amounts. My name was at the top, followed by a long string of figures. But there was something off. I couldn't make sense of it. Why was my name on this list? And why were these numbers connected to me? I looked back at the man. What is this? I demanded, my voice rising now. Why am I on here? That's for you to figure out, he said, his voice like ice. But if you want to get out of this alive, you'll start playing by their rules. You'll do what they say, or this will end very badly for you. You'll be an example. I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. The weight of the paper in my hands felt like it was crushing me. I didn't have time to process all of this. Play by their rules? Who were they? Suddenly, a phone rang from the other side of the apartment, breaking the heavy silence. My eyes snapped toward the sound, and the man's eyes followed. His hand reached into his pocket again, and before I could even think to stop him, he was answering the phone. Don't worry, he said into the phone. He's here. He paused, glancing at me. Just make sure he doesn't try anything. We're running out of time. My heart thudded in my chest as I felt the full weight of his words. Who were they talking about? What the hell was going on? The man hung up and turned back to me. They'll be here soon. You don't have much time. The choice is simple, work with us, or get out of the way. Why me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why pick me? Because you're the key, he said. The only one who can stop this. And I'm here to make sure you do. Stop what? I asked, feeling a surge of panic. What the hell is happening? He didn't answer. Instead, he turned on his heel and walked toward the door. You'll find out soon enough, he said, his voice like a shadow. I didn't have a choice. This was happening. And I was right in the middle of it, caught in a web of lies, corruption, and murder I didn't even begin to understand. The door closed with a click behind him, and I was alone. The wall seemed to press in on me, closing me in. But there was something in that moment, something in his words, that told me this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I looked at the piece of paper again. My name at the top. And then, the names below. The game was far from over. In fact, it had just begun. The stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. And I was already in too deep to back out now. The air was thick with tension. The man at my door hadn't said much, but his presence spoke volumes. My heart was pounding in my chest, each beat a reminder that the world I thought I knew was slipping further away from me. I glanced back at the list in my hand, the one with my name at the top, surrounded by unfamiliar names and chilling numbers. What had I gotten myself into? You don't have much time, the man said, his voice flat, almost disinterested. The clock's ticking. They're watching you, Adam. The words didn't register at first. I was still stuck on the list, my name. The numbers. The connection. It made no sense. But if I was involved in something bigger than me, something dangerous, I needed answers. Fast. I looked up at him, trying to steady my breath. Who are they? Who's behind this? He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I think you know. You just don't want to admit it. My mind flashed to Roy's warning, to the hushed conversations in the halls of the hospital. The deals. The shady figures in the shadows. Was it possible? Could the people I trusted be involved in something so dark? You're part of a bigger game now, the man continued, stepping further into the apartment. Whether you like it or not. And if you're going to survive, you need to play by their rules. I backed up, feeling the cold wall behind me. My heart was racing, my body too still. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to be a part of this mess. But the deeper I dug, the worse it became. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Everything, he said simply. You've seen too much. You're already compromised. There's no going back now. I clenched my fists, my mind spinning. And if I refuse? His eyes darkened. You won't. I swallowed hard, not daring to look away. The man seemed to know something I didn't. His confidence was unsettling, but I didn't have the luxury of time. I needed to make a decision, and fast. I don't know what you want from me, I said, trying to steady myself. But I can't just. You don't have a choice, he interrupted, his tone turning colder. You're already a part of this. You can either help them, or you can end up like everyone else who got too close. They're always watching. I could feel it. The weight of his words pressing down on me. It was all real, and it was closing in. There was no way out. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog that clouded my mind. What happens if I don't play along? What's the end game? The end game? His smirk deepened. It's too late for questions. The clock's ticking, Adam. You'll find out soon enough. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving me standing there, alone and breathless. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. I felt the weight of it, the heaviness of the situation. The cold, the uncertainty, the fear clawing at me. There was no way to know who to trust, who was playing me, and who was waiting for the right moment to strike. And worst of all, the question that gnawed at me, the question I wasn't sure I wanted to answer, was I already too far gone to stop? I stumbled backward into the living room, my mind racing, my hands shaking. What did he mean, too far gone? What was the game they were playing? I needed to find out, but I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. I thought of Sarah. I thought of Roy's warnings. I thought of David. Could he be involved in this? The thought felt like a dagger to my chest. If David, my own brother, was part of this, what was I supposed to do? Could I trust him? Or was he just another pawn in a bigger scheme? The ringing of my phone pulled me from my thoughts. I looked down at the screen, heart dropping. It was Sarah. I answered quickly. Sarah, what's going on? What do you know about all this? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, her voice, shaky and filled with fear. Adam, I think they're already inside. I saw them watching you today. My blood went cold. What do you mean, they're watching me? I saw someone familiar, someone from the hospital, she said. They were following you. They're everywhere. The words felt like a slap across the face. I was being watched. I had to get out. I turned to grab my bag, my pulse quickening. Sarah, where are you? We need to meet. We need to figure this out. I don't know how much longer I can stay here, she whispered. I think I'm in danger too. I hung up quickly, my mind racing. I couldn't waste any more time. Just as I grabbed my coat and opened the door to leave, I saw it, the figure. Standing in the hallway, just outside my door. A man. He looked familiar. Too familiar. It was David. I froze. Adam, we need to talk, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I knew in that moment, without a doubt, that nothing would ever be the same again. The walls closed in, and I felt the air grow thick around me. There was no escaping it now. This was the moment everything changed. Adam, he repeated, his eyes filled with something I couldn't read. I'm not the one you should be worried about. I sat there, frozen, staring at David. His eyes locked with mine, full of something I couldn't place. The weight of his words hit me harder than the deafening silence that followed. You're not the one you should be worried about. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it, something that didn't sit right. Was this the same brother I had grown up with? The one I thought I knew so well? Or was he a stranger wrapped in a mask of familiarity? Who then? I asked, my voice hoarse. David stepped closer, his movements deliberate, measured. The space between us felt smaller, as if the walls themselves were closing in, pressing me for answers I wasn't ready to hear. You're too deep in this, he said quietly. But you've been asking the wrong questions. I swallowed, my pulse quickening. What does that mean? What are you trying to say? David hesitated. For a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. It's not just about the money, Adam. It's about control. I felt the floor beneath me shift. My breath caught in my throat. You've been used, David continued. They've been using you. All along. And now, you're their target. His words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. My mind raced as I tried to process what he was telling me. Who are you talking about? Who's behind all this? David glanced around the room, his eyes darting to the windows, then back to me. He leaned in, speaking in a low, urgent whisper. People you trust. People you never thought would betray you. I stood up, shaking my head. No, this doesn't make sense. I don't know who to trust anymore. You never did, David said, his voice sharp. You were always looking in the wrong places. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The pieces were falling into place, but they didn't make a clear picture. What do you want from me, David? What do I have to do? Nothing, he replied, his voice strangely calm. The damage is already done. But you need to make a choice. Now. Choice? My mind reeled. What do you mean, make a choice? This isn't some game, this is real life. Exactly, he said, his eyes narrowing. And in real life, there are consequences. Consequences for your choices. The tension in the room was unbearable. My chest tightened, and I had to fight to keep my breathing steady. I didn't know who was playing who anymore. Was David trying to protect me? Or was he part of the game all along? You're not going to stop this, I said, my voice low but firm. You can't stop it. David's expression faltered for a moment, but only for a second. I'm not the one in control here, Adam. Neither are you. He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, he stopped. His hand hovered over the doorknob, and he glanced back at me. You've made your choice already. And now, you're in it too deep. With that, he was gone. I stood there, alone, the silence of the room swallowing me whole. My head spun, my thoughts scattered in 1,000 different directions. Nothing made sense anymore. The web of lies, the betrayal, the manipulation, had I been blind to it all this time? I ran my hand through my hair, my mind racing. I needed answers. I needed to know who was behind all of this. But I knew it wasn't going to be easy. The deeper I dug, the darker it got. I had to find a way out, but I wasn't sure I could. As I stood there in the dead silence, my phone buzzed on the table. I froze. It was a message from Roy. Meet me. I have something you need to see. It's bigger than we thought. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat, my heart pounding in my chest, and rushed out of the apartment. I didn't know what Roy had found, but I knew one thing for sure, it was my only chance to get to the truth. The city streets blurred around me as I ran, my breath shallow and erratic. I passed the familiar landmarks, familiar faces, but everything felt different now. The air was heavier, as if the world was holding its breath. I reached the alley where Roy said he'd be, my footsteps echoing in the still night. The flickering streetlights cast long shadows, adding to the unease that gripped me. And then, I saw him. Roy stood there, leaning against the wall, his face unreadable. You came, he said, his voice flat. What's going on, Roy? I asked, my voice tight with fear and frustration. What do you know? Roy didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out a small envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. I hesitated before taking it, my fingers trembling. Open it, Roy said, his voice barely above a whisper. I tore open the envelope, my eyes scanning the contents. It was a set of documents. I scanned the first page. My name. Numbers. Dates. And then, at the bottom, the most chilling thing I had ever seen. A signature. David's signature. My world spun as the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. David wasn't just involved, he was the mastermind. Everything I had thought I knew about the situation, about the people I trusted, was a lie. Roy had known. He had been trying to protect me from the truth, but I had been too blind to see it. The only way to stop this, Roy said, his voice grim, is to take it to the authorities. Expose them all. I nodded slowly, the weight of what had just been revealed crashing down on me. The pieces were finally falling into place. But then, a thought hit me. What if exposing them meant exposing myself? I took one last look at Roy. Are you sure we're doing the right thing? Roy didn't hesitate. The truth always comes out, Adam. One way or another. And as I stood there, the weight of the world on my shoulders, I knew it was true. There was no going back.